Welcome into WBOA Courtside. Excited to have you along this week. Lance Lusenegger along with Justin Marion each and every week here on the program, talking basketball officiating. And this week's guest is a longtime veteran on the basketball courts around Wisconsin. 32 years as a WIA basketball official, 2 state basketball tournaments during his career, a longtime instructor who has been with the WBOA since its inception, on staff of the association, a transition from that in co-instructional chair and lead to supporting our observation program, observing officials from the youth level all the way up to the varsity level of the last few years. It is Scott Kloss. And Scott, thanks so much for some time as we get into the heart of the basketball season and take us back to the beginning. How did you get the bug for officiating basketball? Where did it all start?
Well, as you said, 30 plus years. It actually went back to high school. We had a class in high school for officiating, which was interesting all in itself. It started out in the men's league and led into the grade school program. Back then, we really had no resource for improvement in officials. There were associations, but the meetings weren't really geared towards young officials or newer officials for sure. So as years went by, it became more of a struggle with trying to pick up the nuances of officiating. So when the WBOA started, it was a great opportunity to fill a void, which for me led to the desire to help everybody improve and eliminate that gap that we had when I first started. So very happy that the WBOA started and that it took the route that it did. I think we've done a tremendous job with filling the void of helping new officials find their way in the process, no question.
Scott, we are very appreciative of your role as an instructor since inception and soon thereafter taking on a co-instructional lead role. And since you've stepped aside from that, you've really put a lot of energy and effort into our observation program. Share a little bit of background of what that is and then what's taking place this basketball season to support WBOA members.
So last year was our first year. We learned a lot as an association on how this should mature. We realized initially that the outcry for being observed was much greater than we could handle. So our number one focus this year is to make sure we can meet the needs of the membership. We want to make sure that anybody that needs or wants an observation gets one. Last year, unfortunately, we missed a couple individuals. We want to make sure that doesn't happen this year. In reality, it's very simple for the membership. You go on our website, you go to the observation platform, and you fill out a very brief survey, which asks, I think, the level you worked, the number of years you worked, and then we ask for strengths and weaknesses so that we as observers can focus in on that. We think it's probably the best way to be able to somewhat take the program and dive it down into an individual level versus having it be generic.
So 1 year in the books with the observation program, all different levels, right? From doing 4th grade little youth stuff all the way up to the varsity level. What are the most common areas where you're seeing officials excel through that first year of the program?
To me, without question, understanding the rules and the applications were much greater across the board than I anticipated. I think it's truly a testament to the WBOA, to the classroom sessions, and to the instructors. The members definitely understand the rules and normally how to apply them in all different circumstances at all different levels. It's a great thing to see, actually.
Then conversely, what are some reoccurring challenges or areas of growth you've seen through your efforts in the observation program that members could benefit keying in on?
I think there's probably 2 areas that are related. I still think we have a tendency to anticipate calls and situations, and some of that I think is due to positioning. I know everybody's heard about letting a play start, develop, finish, and then make a decision. If our positioning isn't correct, I don't believe we have the ability to see the play start. Justin, I know you and I have touched on this. If we don't see it start or we don't see it fully developed, we kind of anticipate then, and then we make a decision based on that anticipation. Unfortunately, a lot of times that's an incorrect decision. So I firmly believe if we actually concentrate on positioning, our decision-making process will be much better down the long run, and we'll be much, much better as officials as a whole. I know that last year we touched on a couple of them in our emails out to the membership. We talked about where you should stand as a trail for free throws. Even after that came out, I saw members still at half court, and they left the rebounding action to then your center and your lead official. And then unfortunately, because they're out of position to make some of those calls, they're forced to anticipate or guess at those calls. If we narrow in on our positioning, it'll help our call making much better in the end.
WBOA observation lead Scott Kloss joins us going into year 2 of the observation program. From your experience before even this observation program started, what role does an official's body language and demeanor play in their success on the court?
If you listen to the coaches that we've had come in our panel discussions, a lot of them talk about communication and how that's important to them, right? I believe that starts with our body language. When we go across to meet coaches, when we try to address coaches, if our body language is poor, that communication isn't going to be received well. I've been telling a lot of officials that I've worked with, because it was told to me several years ago, just do simple things like smile, right? When you go to meet the coach, have a smile on your face, have a good demeanor, have that body language be enhancing. Let's have a discussion. Let's be open about this, right? When you leave a coach after a frankly heated discussion, leave with a smile on your face, not a laugh, not sarcastic, but a smile to let everybody else in the world know things are fine. Well, you may disagree, but things are still fine. I think that's all part of communication. Body language is a huge part of this.
Scott, how can officials strike a balance between consistent enforcement of rules as well as understanding the flow of the game?
I think this is a very difficult question. How do you like that? This goes into the art, right? The art of officiating. I think we have to understand the individual teams as well as our partners and how the game is going from the outset. If we have an unbalanced game, I think it's difficult to maintain a great flow. A lot of times the players can dictate the flow. However, if we want to keep a flow, because the flow equals good balance, we maintain control over things like speed. We get the ball in a hurry if we have good flow. We take an extra pause if we have bad flow. Why? Because it allows everybody to calm down, and I think that helps us gain more balance. If we have a very talented team and a team still finding their way, we really have to work on understanding what marginal contact is. And I think that comes in a pregame, and then understanding that contact throughout the game is what kind of gets us down to the flow. I just think it's a really hard thing at times when we have the imbalance in teams.
Are there particular scenarios out there, Scott, that you're seeing officials struggle when it comes to consistency? What's that one thing they're struggling for consistency, and how can they improve in that area?
Again, I'll go back to consistency struggles when the game is lopsided. I don't know that we do a really good job at that point. We have to reduce the understanding of marginal contact in order to maintain a consistent call, right? If you have two up and down teams, guys going to the hoop, and we have contact and the ball goes in, we typically have nothing, right? If we have two different styles, or worse yet, two different talents, that same play may warrant a whistle on one end and not the other, and that is not good consistency. So narrow the margin of marginal contact and allow that to play into your decision-making process.
Officials are often seen as just, quote, part of the game. How can we better educate the public to see them as leaders and authorities, both on and off the court?
I actually believe that this would start at the youth level. I'm guilty of this. In my last years, I did not work enough youth games to help that growth. If we communicate well with players at the youth level, parents see that, and when they advance in levels and they see that communication continue, it allows them to see we are part of the game, and this relationship we have with players is much better than the way it's currently perceived. Right now, I think the general public perceive that relationship as adversarial at times, and it's really not. It's us trying to help people along in the game. So if we do a better job at the youth level with communication with players, not talking about communicating with fans as an example, but if we communicate good with players at that level, when they grow throughout the process, they will remember that, and they'll know, look, I can communicate with officials. It's okay. I don't have to look at them as an adversary. I can look at them as somebody that can help me grow within the game. So I think that might be an area we could look at to improve.
Scott Kloss joins us this week on WBOA Courtside. He is with the Wisconsin Basketball Officials Association, going into season 2 of the observing program, where he goes out and watches officials of all levels, from youth all the way up to the high school level. And this observation program, as you go into year 2, how do you tailor that feedback if you've got a first-time official, maybe never worked, maybe their first year, versus a veteran official who's been doing this for many years?
So I go back to that form in the WBOA website where we ask those two important questions. It's, what do you believe your strengths are? List 2 of them. And what do you believe your weaknesses are? List 2 of them. Because when I go observe a game, or when I get a game tape to observe, I focus on those 4 areas to make sure you truly are doing what you believe is a strength, and look for ways to improve what you deem as a weakness. We all have our own, right? I know what my weaknesses are. I know what I have to work on every season. I know you guys do the same. If you list them and have somebody go observe you looking specifically for those areas, you'll come out with a new perspective on how to improve it or how to continue improving it as the season goes on.
Scott, you talked about in the margins and marginal contact. WBOA instructional theme this year is quality over quantity. What does that mean to you, and how does that relate to within reducing the margins?
I think it's a great idea to discuss. Quality without question is what we want over quantity. I still believe a big chunk of decisions we make or calls that we make call themselves. If you focus on the contact that calls itself and you get those right, I believe you'll have a successful game versus looking for a call or calling a marginal call that you have to go explain or justify to a coach. If we focus back on calls that call themselves and getting those correct, not missing those, I think that gets rid of the quantity and improves the quality.
Technology has changed a lot since you began back 32 years ago, Scott. And what role does that technology play? Some good, some bad, right? As far as officiating and observing yourself getting better, right? We always kind of preach, right? You need to see yourself on film because maybe you don't recognize what you're doing in live action.
No question. No question about it. Technology has changed dramatically 30 plus years. Years ago, you struggled to see one of your games on video. Now you can see them all. And to be honest, there's no reason you shouldn't see 4 to 6 to 10 of your games a year. I know that the last year or 2 years ago, I tried to do 2 a month. And after each game, I'd make notes. And then when I watch the second game, I'd look for those notes again. Am I still doing this? Am I still doing that? To make sure I wasn't making the same mistakes. And then I'd look for new areas of improvement, mostly on positioning, but some signal calling. I'm sure everybody's online now. You can see the various websites that talk about signaling and how important it is. And I agree wholeheartedly. It is part of this observation, part of the technology part is you never know what you look like until you see it. Or better yet, you never know what you look like until somebody else sees it. I know, Lance, I actually saw you work last year and I thought you did a great job. My only comment was I thought your signals were really wide. I remember when I was observed by Paul Selzer, I had a push signal, and he pulled me aside and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Push me." I said, "What?" He says, "Push me." So I pushed him. He says, "That's a push signal." He says, "What are you doing with your hands out here? What are you doing?" I mean, you don't know you're doing that until somebody points it out, right? So the film, the technology is outstanding. Now, the negative side is we all make mistakes. Those mistakes are now amplified, right? But it also, I'll go back to your quality versus quantity, Justin. If you have to explain a call to a supervisor or even an observer, 9 out of 10 times you probably didn't have to make that call, right? It didn't call itself. So technology, the game films that we can all get, I don't care what level, even the grade school games nowadays are out on YouTube, right? So whatever level you're working at, you can get a game tape of yourself and watch it. And if part of this observation, kind of how this thing started was, if you watch a game of yourself and you want another opinion, send it to me. We'll look at it. Somebody will look at it. We'll look at it and give it honest feedback. It is what it is. Hopefully, we have a good discussion about it and we can make improvements along the way. I can tell you that last year, several of the individuals that I observed were very, very amenable to discussion. And it was great discussion about, well, why do you do this or why do you do that? Why do you stand here versus there? Why do you why would you make this call versus that call? When you have it on video, all of our observations, we timestamp it. We say, go look at 13:23 of the first half, because then we're looking at the exact same play and we can discuss it openly. So it's made a great progress for us all.
Scott, on behalf of the association, just want to take a moment to say thank you for your efforts in leading the observation program and certainly wishing you well on your recovery. And we certainly hope that you can get back on the floor one day. As you work to get back on the floor and taking your observation efforts that you've done the last few years, is there a single piece of advice you would give to all officials, regardless of their experience level, that would help them be a better official this year?
Years ago, there were 2 individuals that I respected a great amount that said, go watch someone you admire, someone you want to, at a level that you want to get to. Watch one of their games, find at least one thing they do that you like and one thing they do that you don't like. Incorporate what you like and make sure you're not doing what you dislike. I can think of a member who years ago, back in the 2-man days, I went and watched him, and it's kind of funny. I picked up on the way he brought subs into a game. I absolutely loved it. It was welcoming. It was like, 2 hands, come on in. Enjoy the game. Join us. It was very warm and welcoming. For some reason, that stuck in my head that I want to do that. So One of my preseason notes to myself was make sure you're welcoming with all subs. And it may sound funny, it may be trivial, but yet it was something I liked that he did that I wanted to make sure I did. So I think my advice would be to go watch someone you admire at a level that you want to achieve and look for things they do that you like and look for things that they do that you don't like and incorporate those in your game.
Talking the WBOA observation program and going into year 2 here with Scott Kloss, who runs the program for the Wisconsin Basketball Officials Association. You said you had a lot of people come out and want to be observed last year. That's great, but there's always more, right? There's always more, and I know the bandwidth is only so much, but what advice would you give to officials to say that this is important to be observed by an unbiased person here who just wants to give you feedback to make you better? Some people might be hesitant to that, but why should they be observed?
It's simple. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know that you have a push signal that looks absurd until somebody points it out, right? You don't know that you can be welcoming when you bring a sub in and have a positive communication with that sub unless someone tells you. And these are things that aren't going to be covered in the classroom. This is the one opportunity you have a season that you can get basically one-on-one training personalized for you, your game, and your situation. We can work on your strengths and your weaknesses. You can't do that in a classroom setting. I love what we do in the classroom. Everybody knows that. I can't talk highly enough about what we do, but now we need to get personal with some individuals so they can achieve their goals. So that's what I would do. Now, last year, I think we did 17 observations roughly. I would like to do more this year. And I'm going to tell the members, if you were observed last year, you want to be observed again this year, that's fine. Just fill the form out for us. That's all we have to do.
Scott, I want to personally thank you for our conversations, and I really believe I'm a better official from our conversations and the things we have, and really proud to be a part of the WBA instructional staff, of this podcast, and helping other members get better. As we've talked here a little bit, you had a great passion in instruction, been a long time instructor, and now the observation program. What's something that you think is important that we haven't asked you that you want to hit on?
As technology is advanced and as the game is advanced, we have to stay more positive as officials on the court and present a more positive position on the court. I know if I looked at myself 20 years ago, I was not that official. I was not at all. In fact, I remember the very first game I worked with Dave Garwish in the locker room at halftime. He looked at me and said, "Do you ever smile?" And it was that moment in my life as an official that I changed and realized how much your personality at that moment reflects how you're officiating to others. I could have nailed the game. Doesn't matter. It didn't look like I was approachable. It didn't look like I was a calm demeanor. Even though I was, it didn't have that perception to others. So it was something that I had to work hard on, and I did. And I think a lot of us still do. I know it's a yearly struggle for me to make sure that I smile at all times. I have to. Otherwise, when you look at that video back, you're like, you really look crabby. For what? For what? We have to really work on a persona on the court. Now, I guess I will say in closing, I have really enjoyed the WBOA and everything it stands for and everything that's been accomplished by it. From the yellow whistles for Greg all the way up to helping every official get better. It's been an absolute joy of mine. It just has.
We can hear the passion in your voice. I really appreciate the time coming on the podcast this week, Scott, and really open and honest conversation about all things basketball, but focusing on the observation program and all the years you've given back to the WBOA. So thank you for that, and thanks for coming on this week.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That is Scott Kloss, our guest this week on WBOA Courtside. Learn more about the Wisconsin Basketball Officials Association at our website, wisboa.net. All the views expressed by our host and guests tonight do not reflect the opinions of the Wisconsin Basketball Officials Association or its members, and you can learn more about everything going on with the WBOA at wisboa.net. For Justin Marion, I'm Lance Lusnagger. Appreciate you listening and watching us all season long, and we'll catch up with you again next week talking more basketball on WBOA Courtside.